God gave the prophet a whole list of things that will happen. The graves of Israel's captivity will be opened. They will come into their own land. They will be made alive by God's Spirit, and they will recognize that it is Yahweh and not coincidence who has performed all of this. Today, they're halfway there. God hadn't exhausted the subject. Ezekiel continues.
Again the word of Yahweh came to me, saying, As for you, son of man, take a stick for yourself and write on it, for Yehudah and for the children of Yisrael, his companions, and take another stick and write on it, for Joseph and the stick of Ephraim, and for all the house of Yisrael, his companions. Then join one to the other for yourself into one stick, and they will become one in your hand.
At this time in Israel's history, the kingdom was divided. The northern 10 tribes had broken off from Judah and Benjamin in 930 B.C., 300 years before Ezekiel's day. The break was apparently total and permanent. Yahweh didn't care. They would be one nation again.
And when the children of your people speak to you, saying, Will you not show us what you mean by these? Say to them, Thus says Yahweh, Surely I will take the stick of Joseph, which is in the hand of Ephraim, and the tribes of Yisrael his companions, and I will join them with the stick of Yehudah, and make them one stick, and they will be one in my hand. And the sticks on which you write will be in your hand before their eyes. Then say to them, Thus says Yahweh, Surely I will take the children of Yisrael from among the nations, wherever they have gone, and I will gather them from every side, and bring them into their own land. And I will make them one nation in the land, on the mountains of Yisrael, and one king shall be over them all, and they shall no longer be 2 nations, nor shall they ever be divided into 2 kingdoms again. Ezekiel 37:15-22.
This is a work in progress. It began in the mid-19th century and continues to this day. Those in Israel and Washington who would trade land for the promise of peace, historically the most foolish of bargains, remember Czechoslovakia, should note that the prophecy specified on the mountains of Israel. This area is within the West Bank, the land that historically challenged politicians want to give to the Palestinian Arabs. And remember, in Numbers 34 and elsewhere, Yahweh specified that the Jordan River would be Israel's eastern border. God's prophecy is written. What makes the politicians think they can unwrite it? But we're not talking about Israeli-Arab squabbles here. Ezekiel is speaking of healing rifts between Jews. Forget for the moment that you can't get 10 Israelis in a room without having 11 opinions represented. A divergence of political viewpoint is not the same as civil war. Yahweh is saying that the divided kingdom of Ephraim and Judah is to be a thing of the past. That's saying a mouthful, however. The northern kingdom, which came to be known by the name of its capital, Samaria, was hated and scorned by the southern Jews because those who had not been scattered to the 4 winds by their Assyrian conquerors had intermarried with the Gentile peoples living among them. They were no longer racially pure. So diluted was the bloodline, in fact, that after the Assyrian captivity, they became commonly known as the 10 lost tribes of Israel, although that's not a biblical concept. They're not lost to Yahweh. Israel consists of both Judah and Ephraim, regardless of whether or not they are aware of their Israelite lineage. Yahweh not only knows who's a Jew or an Israelite and who isn't, he even knows which of the 12 tribes each individual belongs to. More to the point, I believe the Jews themselves will know before the tribulation is over. How? I'll tell you later in this chapter. The why of it is much more important anyway. Why do the Jews, most of them, still find themselves in a position of exile and ignorance at this late date? It's because at almost every juncture in their long and checkered history, they did precisely what Yahweh told them not to do. It's not like they weren't warned.
When you beget children and grandchildren, and have grown old in the land, and act corruptly, and make a carved image in the form of anything, and do evil in the sight of Yahweh your God, to provoke him to answer, I, this would be Moses, call heaven and earth to witness against you this day, that you will soon utterly perish from the land which you cross over the Jordan to possess. You will not prolong your days in it, but will be utterly destroyed. And Yahweh will scatter you among the peoples, and you will be left few in number among the nations where Yahweh will drive you. And there you will serve gods, the work of men's hands, wood and stone, which neither see, nor hear, nor eat, nor smell.
That much is history, but there is reason for hope. There is no if attached to Israel's restoration, only a when.
But from there you will seek Yahweh your God, and you will find him if you seek him with all your heart and with all your soul. When you are in distress, and all these things come upon you in the latter days, when you turn to Yahweh your God and obey his voice, for Yahweh your God is a merciful God, he will not forsake you, nor destroy you, nor forget the covenant of your fathers, which he swore to them. Deuteronomy 4:25-31.
Yahweh spoke through the prophet Nathan to remind David that he wants the Jews to have a secure homeland. It gives him no pleasure to have to discipline his chosen people by removing them from the land.
I will appoint a place for my people Yisrael, and I will plant them, and they will dwell in a place of their own, and move no more. Nor shall the sons of wickedness oppress them any more, as previously, since the time that I commanded judges to be over my people Israel, and have caused you to rest from all of your enemies. 2 Samuel 7:10 and 11. See also 1 Chronicles 17:9 and 10.
For his part, David was only too aware of his God's desire to bless his people.
O give thanks to Yahweh, for he is good, for his mercy endures forever. And say, Save us, O God of our salvation, gather us together, and deliver us from the Gentiles, to give thanks to your holy name, to triumph in your praise. Blessed be Yahweh, the God of Israel, from everlasting to everlasting. 1 Chronicles 16:34 and 36. See also Psalms 106:47.
The Jews were enjoying an unprecedented period of blessing under David's reign. They had yet to be scattered under the Gentile lash. So his request to gather us and deliver us were prophetic, as was this psalm in which he looks forward to Israel's final restoration.
Yahweh, you have been favorable to your land. You have brought back the captivity of Jacob. You have forgiven the iniquity of your people. You have covered all their sin. You have taken away all your wrath. You have turned from the fierceness of your anger. Psalm 85:1-3.
Jeremiah, on the other hand, saw the destruction and deportation of his people with his own eyes, after preaching to deaf Jewish ears for 40 years. If anyone had a right to be bitter, it was this weeping prophet. And yet he spoke again and again about Israel's bright future.
But I will gather the remnant of my flock out of all countries where I have driven them, and bring them back to their folds, and they shall be fruitful and increase. Jeremiah 23:3.
Or,
Behold, the days are coming, says Yahweh, that they shall no longer say, As Yahweh lives, who brought up the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt, but as Yahweh lives, who brought up and led the descendants of the house of Israel from the north country, and from all of the countries where I had driven them, and they shall dwell in their own land. Jeremiah 23:7 and 8.
That's an interesting description of their place of exile, the north country. Babylon, where they were being carted off to at the time, was more east than north. But where did the vast majority of immigrants to modern Israel come from? Eastern Europe and Russia, the north country. As if he hadn't made himself clear yet, Jeremiah kept going.
For behold, the days are coming, says Yahweh, that I will bring back from captivity my people Yisrael and Judah, and I will cause them to return to the land that I gave to their fathers, and they shall possess it. Jeremiah 30:3.
Notice that the Jews, not just Judah, but all of Israel, won't return on their own, but Yahweh will bring them, will cause them to return. Why? Because of the promises he made to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The prophet continued,
Thus says Yahweh, refrain your voice from weeping and your eyes from tears, for your work shall be rewarded, says Yahweh, and they shall come back from the land of the enemy. There is hope in your future, says Yahweh, that your children shall come back to their own border. I have surely heard Ephraim bemoaning himself. You have chastised me, and I was chastised like an untrained bull. Restore me, and I will return, for you are Yahweh my God. Surely after my turning I repented, and after I was instructed, I struck myself on the thigh. I was ashamed, yes, even humiliated, because I bore the reproach of my youth. Is Ephraim my dear son? Is he a pleasant child? For though I spoke against him, I earnestly remember him still. Therefore my heart yearns for him. I will surely have mercy on him, says Yahweh. Jeremiah 31:16-20.
Though he was primarily a prophet to Judah, Jeremiah had just delivered a message of hope and comfort to Ephraim, aka Samaria, the northern kingdom, or Israel, who had been conquered, dispersed, and assimilated, diluted and polluted by Assyria 130 years before this. Yahweh knows who his people are, all of them. Next, Yahweh chides the future Israel for taking their sweet time returning.
Set up signposts, make landmarks, set your hearts towards the highway, the way in which you went. Turn back, O Virgin of Israel, turn back to these your cities. How long will you gad about, O you backsliding daughter? For Yahweh has created a new thing in the earth. A woman shall encompass a man. Jeremiah 31:21-22.
It's kind of a dare. How long are you going to fool around, you silly girl of a nation, just because it's impossible? I, Yahweh, have given you, a weak, defenseless woman, the strength to overcome a fierce, strong man, the weight of the whole world's animosity and opposition. Even today, no more than half of the world's Jews live in the Promised Land.
Thus says Yahweh, the Lord of hosts, the God of Yisrael, they shall again use this speech in the land of Yehudah and in its cities. Then I will bring back their captivities. Yahweh bless you, O home of justice and mountain of holiness. And there shall dwell in Yehudah itself, and in all of its cities together, farmers and those going out with flocks. For I have satisfied the way of the weary soul, and I have replenished every sorrowful soul. Behold, the days are coming, says Yahweh, that I will sow the house of Yisrael and the house of Yehudah with the seed of man and the seed of beast. And it shall come to pass that as I have watched over them to pluck up, to break down, to throw down, to destroy, and to afflict, so I will watch over them, to build and to plant, says Yahweh. Jeremiah 31:23-28.
When the Zionist movement started picking up steam in the late 19th century, Palestine was a desolate, sparsely populated province of Syria. Despite all the Muslim rhetoric of recent days, nobody seemed to want the place. Long before their statehood was granted to them, Jews came in and bought. That's bought, not conquered, seized, or occupied, large tracts of present-day Israel from Arabs who considered the land virtually worthless. It was these Jews who began to build and plant the prosperous nation that exists today, under the watchful eye of Yahweh.